I'm pretty sure you want to see how we go about developing the SharePoint framework web part. So let's go ahead and get started with that. I am, at this point, I'm going to just let you know that I've already installed the dependencies, the ones that I went over in my previous video, the first one, in the toolchain. So if you need any reference, please go back to that video and install everything that's required there, please. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to clean this up and change this to a functional component. Let's convert this tackle box to a const, and it's going to be of type React functional component. I'm going to set up the props here and then get rid of this, turn it into an arrow function, open a brace to indicate that that's our component. And then we're going to clean up and just keep this section with a span that says test. Oh, I missed a parenthesis here. Get rid of this escape. And we have to export this component. We're also going to clean up our modules. And that should clean things up. If we go back to our page, we have just test on the screen. Now what we have to do is set up our PNP connection. To do that, we're going to create a new file. It is going to be called pnpjsconfig.ts. So we're going to import from at Microsoft web part base. We're going to import web part context. Okay. And then we're going to import from at pnpsp SPFi ISPFX context SPFx as SPFx. All right. Then we're going to declare our variable, which is going to be _sp, which is going to be of type SPFi. And then we're going to export our function that gets sp. So export const get sp equals context. And we're going to make this optional, which is of type web part context. And it's going to return SPFi, which is our SP object. Okay. First, what we're going to do is we're going to check if _sp is equal to undefined or _sp is equal to null. We do that because we don't want to necessarily every single time we call get sp and need to have to instantiate sp. Okay, we're only going to do that one time. Meaning once it exists and you've loaded it with the information, there should be no need to reload it every single time. Because remember, our context is optional. We're only going to be doing this one time when the web part loads. All right, so now we have _sp is going to equal SPFi using SPFx. We should have put this as SP. All right. SPFx context as ISPFX context. All right. So again, we set up our variable. We're going to check if it's undefined or null. And if it is undefined or null, then we're going to basically load our SP object. If it is not, then we're just simply going to return it. Okay. All right. Again, so we can leverage this file anywhere within our web part. That's the beauty of this. And it doesn't hinder us from a performance perspective because, again, we're not redefining it or resetting it up every single time we make that call. All right. So now we're going to import our portions of PNP that we need. So for this demonstration that I'm working on, and again, this will expand as we continue to use this for different use cases. But right now we're going to import webs. we're going to import at pnpsp lists, and we're going to import at pnpsp items. All right. For now, this is all we're going to need. As we progress and we continue to use our web part, there's going to be other things that we need. Okay. So this is basically going to be our function that allows us to use pnpjs, the SP object. Now, that being said, we now have to basically pass and start setting up this factory, if you will, by using the context that is created whenever the web part is loaded. So let's go to the tacklebox webpart.ts, and inside of our init function, let's change our init function to be an async function. And now that we have this set up as an async function, we can just basically say this environmental message is going to be equal to await this get environmental message. After that, we're going to await super on init. And finally, we're going to get our SP. We're going to get SP from pnpjsconfig by passing at this dot context. All right. And that basically what we'll do is whenever the web part loads, the initialization function runs and it sets up our SP object in the initialization prior to rendering our main element, which is tacklebox. In the interest of time, I have created a list already. My list only has 2 columns, which makes it pretty simple to work with. But there's a potential that when you work on your solution, you're probably going to be working with a list that has a lot of columns. So let me show you the quick and easy way to getting your types from a SharePoint list identical to that of what SharePoint is expecting. So here I have the pnpjs console of open, and this is part of SP editor. This is an extension for Chrome. Highly recommend that you use it. And what we're going to do is we're going to get the items of our list. sp.web.lists by title. The title is tackle L items. And Control D to run the code. And you saw that it returned an item. So we're going to copy this. And inside Visual Studio Code, we're going to create a types file. And we're going to call that app props. And we're going to create a type. And our type is going to be tackle item. And we're going to basically use an extension called JSON to TS. Basically what it's going to do, it's going to take the object that I saved in the clipboard. And it's going to create a type for me. So what I'm going to do is Control-Shift-P, run this JSON to TS conversion. And from here, what I want to do is I want to keep only part of this type. So what I'm going to end up keeping is just the E tag, because what the E tag does is keeps track of updates. Because what you don't want to do is have an application running where somebody might submit something, but then in the midst of them opening the item and submitting the update, somebody else has already made an update. So what the E tag does is it keeps track of updates so that way people are not stepping over each other. Okay, so we're going to keep that. We're going to keep the ID. We're going to keep the title. And again, you can choose to keep any number of these. Usually what I do is I only keep what's necessary. So I need the quantity on hand. We can keep modified, created, author ID, editor ID, all of this if you'd like. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I only plan to keep these. Another way to create types is by beginning the process of setting up your forms. Naturally, you're going to want to have to input this data, right? So let's create a new folder. I'm going to call it forms. Inside of the forms folder, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call it validation.ts. All right. So in our validation, we're going to prepare our yup validation. So we're going to import from yup. We're going to import infer type, also input number, object, because our schema is going to be an object, and we're going to import string. All right. And then we're going to create our validation. So we're going to export const tackle item schema, and it's going to be an object. And our object is going to contain an o data.etag, and this is going to be a type string, and it is going to be required. Let's put etag is required as a message for validation purposes. The next is going to be ID, and it's going to be a number, and it's also going to be required. And then if it is not there, we're going to set up a message that we can use in our form that says ID is required. And next we're going to add the title, and this is going to be a string. And it also is going to be required. And we're going to add title is required. And we're going to have quantity. Let me put these side by side because it'll make it easier. So we'll have quantity on hand, which is going to be a number, which is going to be required. Quantity on hand is required. And of course, we're going to have a minimum on here. Right, because you wouldn't have negatives. Let's format our document to keep everything on one line. All right. And finally, we'll have our ID, which is also a number. It is required. ID is required. And this is going to come in handy for whenever we start to build our forms. But here's the benefit that you get. You can actually infer a type. So we're going to export type, tackle type infer equals infer type. Okay. And we're going to use the type of tackle item schema. All right. So now if we hover over tackle type infer, you'll notice that they're identical. So this is another good way of setting up your type, because if you set up your type this way, you get the benefit of having your yup validation schema completed for your form and also your type for all of your API calls. So this is my recommendation of how to do this, but obviously it comes in handy what I showed you on how to create the type. So I wanted to share that with you as well. And now we're officially ready to move on to creating our actual API calls for the solution. So in our next video, that's exactly what we will be doing. We will be working on the API and also setting up SWR for data caching and data fetching from SharePoint. Thank you for joining me. I'll catch you on the next one.